Women are often portrayed as simplistic stereotypes: the wicked woman, the airhead, the fragile damsel, or the sex object. And anyone that stands outside of that appears to be an anomaly, which is just sad and discouraging for women everywhere. Hermione Granger stands above that as a strong, independent, logical young woman that doesn't need a man to define her. She went through so much of the same ostracization that other young girls face every day, and even us as adults remember facing when we were children. Hermione is a young, brilliant, muggle-born witch, and her cleverness and wit are considered one of her best qualities. And she continued to seek knowledge and better herself regardless of what anybody else thought. I mean, she knew it was a basilisk, and she solved Snape's riddles. Hermione is at the top of her class, the cleverest witch of her age. And she owned it, when many of us are told that smart girls are unattractive, that we can't be geeks or nerds. But Hermione taught us to work hard, to never be anyone but our authentic selves. We don't need to keep our heads down. We have a right to take up space in the world. We are not a passive piece of furniture for men to use. We don't need to dumb ourselves down to protect their fragile masculinity. Hermione never did. She was bullied and scorned for her brilliance and independence, and yet she persisted. She never needed male validation, and she never looked to a man for approval. Even when the boy that she loves accuses her of being in love with their best friend and abandons them, she doesn't shrivel into nothingness like we often see in young adult literature. She moves forward. She may be a little broken inside, but she's still her own person. She doesn't let it slow her down because she isn't dependent on him for her happiness or fulfillment. She may be a bossy little know-it-all in the beginning, but she evolves into a mature, smart young woman that can stand on her own. She is a muggle-born witch. She is an outsider in a world of inequality and discrimination. But she flips the bird on the unfounded prejudice against her by being the best and the brightest. She isn't afraid to ask questions that other people won't or have never even thought of. She is never afraid to stand up for what she believes in or protect those in her life. She may believe in following the rules, but when something threatens everything that she believes in, she will do what it takes to stand up and protect what she believes is right. Whether that is the downtrodden rights of a house elf, or battle the oppressive Death Eaters that jeopardize the safety and security of the world. There are times to say no, to protest, to rail against the status quo. Hermione knew it, I know it, and you need to know it. Leaders aren't always right, and can easily fall into the corruption of their position of power. And Hermione helps take down and defeat one of the main perpetrators of discrimination and terror, because she has a right to live. When something is wrong, Hermione isn't afraid to tell them. She is fierce and knows when to stand up for herself, even against her best friends. It doesn't matter that they're the leading males. When they're being idiots, she will tell them. But she will also do anything for them, including lay down her own life if that's what it comes to. Hermione is not a damsel in distress. She is perfectly capable of rescuing herself and everybody else. And she does. Often. She doesn't hang back as support. She's out there on the front lines, ready for action. Without her, the trio would have dissolved and lost their confidence and direction. She was the glue that held their fragile existence together. and bound them into an indestructible force to be reckoned with. Harry and Ron would have been dead a dozen times over without her, and they aren't even necessarily grateful for that. But Harry couldn't have continued being the boy who lived without her. Hermione isn't a Barbie. She isn't a Disney princess. Or a hypersexualized male dream. She is everything that young women everywhere should aspire to be. She's content to be herself. She's not there to impress anyone with anything other than her own brains. Everyone always talks about how much Harry suffered and sacrificed, but what about Hermione? Her strength and sacrifice is often downplayed or completely forgotten. Harry is bravery, and Ron is undying loyalty. But Hermione is both, plus the brains to boot. She made some of the hardest choices alone, like erasing her parents' memories to go on a mission that she would likely never return from. Harry and Ron had a family to go back to with the Weasleys and members of the Order, but she had no one to fall back on. She battled some of the scariest creatures in the world, and she came out on top. She isn't perfect. She's flawed. She's human. She's relatable. But her strength is a beacon to women everywhere. And we need more women like her.